So I'm answering a question today. Somebody asked me, what are some of the rituals that I hold on to in my travel lifestyle? And so I just wanted to share three rituals that I hold on to tightly that help me to maintain my sanity, really. Um, but really, just these are just things that make me happy. I think it's important for people to have things that make them happy, that make them feel good about themselves, to have things to be able to look forward to every day. Um, and I think as Americans, people who live in the Western world, but as Americans in particular, we lose a lot of the rituals that hold us, keep us grounded, um, things that keep us closer to God, um, and things that just sort of help you to regulate yourself, to be able to regulate your own nervous system, really, in favor of doing things like being productive. And there's nothing wrong with being productive. I like to be productive too. We all have to do things that help to keep us productive, but we need to be able to bring in those other things so that when we do show up to be productive, we've already done this other work to be able to help keep ourselves together, right? And so my first ritual My first ritual will always be holding on to my essential oils. My essential oils are absolutely, well, essential, for lack of a better word. Um, I have I have this, well, right now it's in like a basket, but when I travel, I have this bag. I don't know, it's probably about this big, of of essential oils of various kinds, various brands of essential oils that I hold on to. I don't particularly, at least not right now, I don't particularly have a brand that I absolutely love. And the reason is because when I go to a new country, there's always a different thing available. When I was in Turkey, Turkey is really big on scents. And so when I found essential oils, they were always some sort of a larger Turkish brand that I was able to purchase. When I was in Rwanda, I was able to find really locally made essential oils and concoctions from different companies, from like mom and pop shops, which I really miss. Like if I could just go to Rwanda right now, there were a few that I could buy. Um, there are a few essential oils that I would go back of mixtures of essential oils that I would purchase tonight. And when I was in Vietnam, is a website called Lazada. I think if that is the, if I remember, that's the name of the website. It's sort of like I don't know, maybe like a Temu, Amazon, something like that. And it's this website where basically you can order everything. You can order everything off of this website pretty much. And they had this brand of essential oils called, let's see, what is this? Heber, Heber. And I absolutely loved their essential oil so much that when I left, I bought, I want to say 20. There was 20 different 20 different bottles of essential oil, and some of them I actually still have here. And so I just wanted to share with you some of my favorites. This one is a new one. You could like, they're so used that the bottle is kind of jacked. You can't even really see it. This is a larger bottle. Um, I don't know how many fluid ounces these are. Um, let's see. I don't know how many fluid ounces these are, but these are a fairly larger bottle of essential oils. And some of my favorites are like jasmine. I like to use this like when I go outside and I'm trying to leave a scent. I like to be able to put it on my body. I'll mix it with some sort of an oil. Usually like a shea, put a couple of drops and mix it with shea butter to put it in like the lotion, put it all over my skin. Um, let's see. I might I haven't like had an allergic reaction to any of these, and so I can also just kind of put it on my skin there, even though you're warned not to do that. But this one is called Mei Chang. I never heard of that before I actually went to Vietnam, but I looked it up. It has I like things that are really floral, sort of like a mixture of floral and woodsy scent. I don't really care for like sweet, you know, mango type of a smell. I think those like sweet, like super sweet smells are like childish to me. But this is like I don't know, it's got like a note of like maybe like a coconut, um, with like some sort of a deep floral mixed in with it. And then of course I have jasmine, I have frankincense and myrrh. This one is just myrrh. I probably use this one the least, only because it's so difficult to be able to get out of the bottle because it's a thick oil. It's a really thick oil, but frankincense and myrrh are really a couple of my favorite ones. When I have the opportunity to go back to the continent of Africa, I think my first stop is going to be Ethiopia so that I can get the real stuff. And then I have things like cinnamon. Cinnamon is something that I love. I actually use the cinnamon. Oh, that's so good. Cinnamon by itself is so sweet in flavor. This is one that I actually do eat. And you want to be able to make sure that when you are using these, if you're going to be, if you're going to ingest it, if you're going to eat it, you want to make sure that you're using something that has its food grade, of course. And so I actually will use it sometimes when I make my own toothpaste, which is usually just some kind of like a baking soda with literally a drop, one drop, maybe two of essential oil, and I'll kind of just make it as I go. I never really, make it like a big batch, and I'll just make it as I go. The reason you only want to use one drop of the cinnamon oil at a time is because this stuff will straight rip your mouth wide open. it'll it'll feel like it's tearing the skin off your gums, and you don't want that, right? What else have I used this for? I've used like not even a drop, but very barely in like a mixed it with like a coconut milk to make like a cinnamon coconut milk for some sort of like a dessert I might be making if I don't have access to cinnamon. Here in Mexico, I have access to really good cinnamon, so I tend to not use it. So mostly I use this, and don't put it on your skin because again, I learned that the hard way. Putting it on even just a drop or two and mixing it with oil, and I put it on my skin. That stuff burns so bad. Um, it's more of like not that it burned the skin, but it's like a tingly feeling, and it's a little too tingly. Something else that I like to travel with, like when I go on short trips, I will take a tea tree oil with me. And that's what I use for things like mosquito bites. If I get like a really small cut or something that, I just don't want to get infected, because when you move around in places where, the air tends to be full of moisture, things tend to get infected quickly. And so to keep that from happening, I will use tea tree oil. What else do I use it for? I'll put it in my sneakers, just to be able to keep my sneakers fresh. And I just like to, I like to put it in a diffuser, the tea tree oil as well, just because it's just a clean, tea tree oil is it's such a clean scent. It's like it's like you get the feeling of, when you clean your house, um, and you walk into a place and it's been freshly cleaned and it has a clean scent. I don't particularly like the smell of chemicals, and I figured that that's a weird thing. Some people do enjoy the smell of chemicals. I don't like chemical cleaners. I like things like tea tree oil. And depending on where I am, tea tree oils is for some reason seems to be quite that challenging for me to find where I am here in Playa del Carmen. So I don't have enough to be able to use it as a cleaning product. Um, but certainly once I'm able to move, I'll be able to hopefully be able to find some sort of a cleaning product with it. Something else I travel with is lavender essential oil. Can't even see it. But this is nice. This helps me to keep me calm. Sometimes I'll take just a little bit, just a dab, and I will put just a little bit under my nose while I'm working. Um, it's like a reset. I think I put it on my nose. Under my nose is sort of a reset smell. Sometimes smells um, help to sort of, it's like clearing out you have a bunch of stuff that you've been doing and thinking about, um, but you want to move on to a new thing and you want to like clear the chalkboard. I will use lavender to be able to do that. I don't know that I don't even know if that analogy makes sense, but it's for me it's like clearing the chalkboard, and helping me to calm down. It helps me to regain focus on what it is that I want to do. And it's just so pleasant. It's slightly sweet, but still floral at the same time. Oh, I love lavender. What is this one? This is geranium, sometimes called geranium rose. And this was probably one of the first essential oils that I had ever bought. This was probably 10, 12, maybe 12, 15 years ago when I was having issues with, the first time I was having issues with anxiety. Um, and I was trying to figure out how to be able to sleep. And I did not want to use things like sleeping pills or any foolish things like that. Or even things like melatonin or things like that. I'm always a person who's always looking for the natural way to be able to solve a health issue. Um, and so somewhere I read online that geranium essential oil is a great way to relax and help your body to relax and to go to sleep. And I found that out, and I use entirely way too much geranium oil, but damn it, I went to sleep. I took that stuff, as I always do, I mixed it with whatever oil I was using, probably coconut oil at that time. Put a few drops on, put it all over after I took a nice hot shower. I was living in Florida at the time, so I would cut the air conditioner on, put the oil all over my body, put on, some nice pajamas, and child, I was knocked out, out, out. I tell you, I was knocked out. So that's geranium rose. And then I have like citrus. I have a grapefruit, I have a sweet orange, and I like to be able to use that when I'm actually in travel, like on the plane, on the bus. And the reason I like to use that is because essential oils isn't pleasant for everybody around me. Um, but I have found, that most people don't complain about citrus. They don't complain about the orange or, the lemon. Um, if it was a chemical cleaner, everybody would just be fine with it. I have found. But with other essential oils, like a rose, I've used like a rosemary. I love the scent of rosemary. Like the lavender, like I said, it's good to clear the brain for me. Rosemary essential oil does the same thing. And so sometimes I like to take a little dab and I put it under my nose or put it on my temples. And people complain. They say, "Oh, I using essential oils and that." But if you come through there with, fabuloso and bleach and ammonia, nobody says a damn thing. So I'll use a bit of orange. Sometimes if it's a good long flight, I'll take a little bit and put a dab with some sort of oil again that I'm using, shea butter or whatever natural oil that I'm using. Mix it, put it on my hands, and I will do that from time to time. And nobody even says a word because they think somebody's eating an orange or something. So that is nice to have. Um, This one is actually one of my favorite mixtures that I got from Rwanda. I don't even think there's anything left in this bottle. Yeah, this is barely anything left in this bottle, but it smells so freaking good. It's called, there's a young woman by the name of Ami. I don't know how to pronounce her name. It's AMI. And at least when I was in Rwanda, she had a store and it had a few different essential oils. It wasn't a large collection, but what she had, was absolutely wonderful. And this one is called Woody, Woody, and it's let's see, it's a 100% organic woody essential oil blend. And let's see, there are other ingredients on here. It's a blend of frankincense and patchouli, great for purifying the air and meditation. So I absolutely love the smell of this. It's called Woody by Amy in Kigali, Rwanda. And this one is really, really good to put in the diffuser. If you get yourself a diffuser, if you want to get into essential oils like really hard, you need a diffuser, a water diffuser. And it has like a little tank in it with maybe this much water. You want to use bottled water, not generally, water from the tap, just because it has a lot of hard sediment in it, and it will ruin your diffuser. And you put a few drops in there, and you'll start to learn that you can experiment with different single scent ones. But this one, Woody, I would always just sort of use on its own because it's a blend of essential oils. It smells so good, so good. I love it. So yeah, that's some of my favorites. I still have a ton more that I could go to, but I don't want to be able to go through some of the other rituals that I go through uh, that help to keep me grounded. Let's see what else. Cooking for health and food as medicine. So when I left my 12-year career in education, um, I had a point where I wasn't working, trying to figure out what it is that I wanted to do. Um, And what I realized was that I really love food and cooking and learning about it. It was just a great way for me to be creative, right? And plus, I was writing my online blog where I was learning about food and how to heal from fibroids. Um, and so I was visiting a lot of like food, ethnic food, grocery stores were really important to me, as well as farmers markets. And so when I left that job, I wound up moving to New York City for a spell, and I got a job at Whole Foods Market. And of course, people are like, Hannah, you have a whole master's degree in education. How are you out here working at Whole Foods Market in the kitchen? But I'll be honest with you, that was one of the best jobs that I had ever had. Um, Only because it was so nice to be in an environment that allowed what I felt like play. I felt like it was a place to be able to play and try new stuff. And I love the setup of Whole Foods. Of course, now there are so many high-end grocery stores, chain grocery stores in particular, to be able to choose from now. But back when I was working there, like Whole Foods was it. Like that was Whole Foods Market was like the epicenter of the high-end grocery stores, at least, where I was at the time. Um, and so I loved it, just the layout of how everything was just in orderly fashion and so, presentable, and people paid attention to color. The salads looked delectable. Um, and everything just looked beautiful. Whereas if you go to like a regular grocery store, and you know what a regular grocery store is, like, a ShopRite, hell, even a Publix, they got potato salad with the plastic clinging on it, and it doesn't, it just looks like it's been sitting there open all afternoon, and it's got like that skin on top of the coleslaw or the potato salad, like because it's been exposed to air, and it just doesn't look good at all. And so being at Whole Foods, I love going to the grocery store anyway. Like going to the grocery store was my way of being able to. I would go to the grocery store at night, particularly when I had high anxiety. I would find grocery stores to go to, and I would just go in and I would touch, um, touch stuff. I was touching stuff that I was buying. It's not like I would just go in there and just touch everything, willy nilly. Put my hands on the avocados, the bok choy, the yams, and the greens, and uh, I would just buy stuff that I had never even heard of before, just to be able to go home and do a Google search on it, and to be able to try different types of fruits. To go to like an Asian grocery store, like, dude, that was my place. Like that was my happy place. A good Asian grocery store, or even a good high quality Caribbean, Latin, and even sometimes some of the African grocery stores. So some of these were much smaller. They had really great meats, like really great quality cuts of things that you couldn't always find. Certainly not in a regular grocery store, and not in a place like a Whole Foods. You will find things like goat meat, oxtail, for a decent price. Um, you can get the whole chicken, cut up chicken. And it was always for a really good price. And at least to me, it always seemed to taste better. It always seemed to taste better when you come from those places. I don't know what it is, but they were using a different quality of meat from someplace else that Publix wasn't using. ShopRite wasn't using. You know, and so I love to go there. And so cooking for health and using food as medicine was always really important to me. And I got the job at Whole Foods. And while I was at Whole Foods, I got to learn side by side from people who had been to culinary school. I could not afford the opportunity to go to culinary school. I already had $100,000 in debt from, undergrad and grad school. Could not afford to go to culinary school, even though I still would. Like if I had all the time and money in the world, I would sign up for culinary school tonight. That really is how much I love it. Um, but I did that, and I think I was there for maybe about 6 months, and then I had gotten offered an opportunity to work with a sister who had started a nonprofit organization, and I got to be a teacher in an after-school program for a full school year, where I was teaching. I had several grades. We were third graders, fifth graders, and sixth graders in Brooklyn, and we had healthy cooking classes. And the point of the classes were to connect STEM. So what is that? Science, technology, engineering, and math to cooking in this after school program. And, I would go shopping and I would make a, a curriculum for the day. Every day had a lesson where I would teach something related to STEM, and math, and they would learn measurements, and they learned really basic culinary skills, how to be able to use a knife, and you know how to clean up after themselves in the kitchen, and learning how to wash your hands after you handle meat. And then, of course, I brought in things like learning how to be able to cook meals that were high in, fresh fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds, and using whole, good quality ingredients. And I was also really good about teaching them how to be able to pull those recipes from their own particular culture. What I really loved about the schools that I worked in is that the kids came from all over the world. And what I was learning from being with the kids on a regular basis is that they never had an opportunity to be able to be their full selves, to be able to talk about wherever it is in the world that they came from. Um, and so when I would introduce recipes in the class, you know, kids got to be able to talk about what they were doing. And so, like, I had kids from Yemen, I had kids from the United Arab Emirates. Of course, I had African American students, who would talk about the foods that they would cook with their grandmothers in the South, um, their grandmothers and their moms. I had kids from the Caribbean. Um, I had Russian kids. Uh, like literally, I had kids from all over, and they would teach us some of their language. A couple of times people brought in song, and this was just like spontaneous. Like this was not even part of the curriculum. I had no idea that they were going to talk about those things. So for third graders, fifth graders, and sixth graders to be able to bring that to a classroom, you would think that because this was an international group of students that it would be welcome for them to be able to talk about where it is that they came from and what they were proud of, but it wasn't, which is why I don't really work in a traditional school system, because I, it just I could go into a whole big thing, but I really think that a lot of times we teach children to squash who they are. We train them to squash who they are as opposed to celebrating who they are. Um, but yeah, but I would bring in these recipes, and I would go to the grocery store and I would, go shopping. Um, and I had about 30 to 35 kids in each class. Ooh, excuse me. 30 to 35 kids in each class. And, it wasn't a banquet, but everybody would leave and would have a plate. And so let's see, there's 4 weeks in a month. And so we would do 3 weeks of a vegetarian option, and then 1 week it would be like the meat would be a treat. And that was I figured that out just because of the budget that I had. Um, it wasn't a lot, but but I always figured out how to make do. And the point was, I didn't want it to be overly expensive. I wanted it to be things that the students could understand, that they could find in the grocery stores that were around them. I didn't want to show them things that were sort of outside of what is available um, at their own local grocery stores. But sometimes I would bring in things that you couldn't find all the time. Like I remember we were doing herbs, and I brought in like garlic ramps. You don't find garlic ramps at a regular grocery store. Things like chives, and I brought in like cranberries, not the dried kind, but like you know the fresh kind, fresh cranberries. And so I would bring it in, and I would have a few people. They would try. I was like, okay, so try. Have you ever had a fresh cranberry? And they'd be like, no, we didn't ever have one. And so I asked a couple of students from the class to try it, and I want you to tell people what it tastes like. And so a couple of brave people said, oh, I want some. I want to try it. Of course, and they put the cranberry in their mouth, and it was sour. And it was so funny. It was to watch their faces. I swear, I wish I had pictures of them. But it was so funny to be able to watch them bite into it, and the cranberry would burst in their mouth, and that sour, how sour hits the sour taste buds in the back of your mouth or in the back of your tongue. And I would have them to describe what it is that flavor was like. Um, and we would use things like honey or raisins. I think we had made the day I made the cranberries, we were making cookies, and I wanted to make a natural jam with the cranberries. So we would blend together the cranberries and soaked raisins as a way to be able to demonstrate that you don't always have to use a ton of white sugar to be able to sweeten everything. That there are sweet things and the fruits that we eat on a regular basis. I had brought in my little blender, um, and we would blend that together, and we sort of use that as a way to be able to put in the center of these little cookies that we made. So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, I have kind of taken that idea, and I have used that of having fun with food, playing with food, discovering what foods taste good to me. Um, it's not really about trying to come up with the best recipe of these things, of all, but more so to be able to teach people that food can be approachable, and that healthy food can come from the culture, whatever culture it is that you come from, that you could find healthy food within your culture, and you can feel good about it, to be able to play with it, to be able to experiment, to not really feel like you have to approach food and cooking as if you don't take these classes, then you're out of luck. It takes time to be able to learn these things, to be able to learn what it is that you like in a salad. I meet a lot of people who say, I don't eat salad. It's because you haven't had that much practice with making it and finding good ingredients, good quality, fresh ingredients. Because that's another thing that I've learned. The freshest the food is, the better. The better it will be, the better it will taste. Rwanda has completely ruined me as far as food is concerned. Because I tell you, I didn't go to the market a lot just because in Rwanda, just because having food delivered to the house was just so easy. I would literally spend maybe $5 to $10 a day, um, getting a few ingredients, and I would make these huge salads. And it was like the little stores that I would purchase from, it was like they had gone to the back of the store, pulled whatever up they needed to pull up from the ground, put it in a paper bag, and delivered the thing. And now that I'm here in Mexico, while the food is fresh, I'm not saying that the food isn't fresh. It does go through a shipping process here, just because of where I'm located here in the Yucatan. It's not as fresh as in probably other parts of Mexico. Um, and I can taste the difference. I can taste the difference. The taste is just not the same. And so while I still eat a lot of salad, they're not as enjoyable as what I had in Rwanda. Um, so I'm always experimenting and trying to find new ways to be able to eat salads. Like today, I made a big bowl of chilaquiles. I'm trying to learn how to be able to incorporate what I love into traditional foods that you can find here. So if you're not familiar with chilaquiles, because I wasn't before I got here, um, chilaquiles are um, it's a bowl of nachos, for lack of a better term. So you take tortillas that have been usually fried, um, and of course they get crispy like nachos. And you would soak it in some sort of a salsa. I use a green salsa or salsa verde, and I mix it with a few different items. And so I had a couple of fried eggs that I put on top. And then I would sort of put the salad on top of on top of the nachos. And so I had white beans that I had warmed up with some cumin and garlic and onions. And then I put fresh onions, and I use that as sort of like a base to be able to eat with the nachos. The nachos are soaked in the salsa verde. And then I added things like tomato and fresh onion and cilantro. Um, I said the eggs. What else did I put? I put radishes and cucumber. Um, and I think that was it because it was a lot. Uh, and it's Friday. I just wanted something fun, and really that was the only meal that I ate all day because it was kind of heavy. Um, but it was enjoyable. So I'm always looking for ways to be able to take things that are local and turning it into something that is still more on the healthy-ish. So, an avocado. I added an avocado to it. And it was so good with some lime juice and a little added salt on it, lime juice and salt. Oh, it was so good. Oh, it was so good. I loved it. But yeah, that's the type of fun that I like to be able to have with food. Um, so what was that? That was ritual number two. And then the last ritual is something I usually do first thing in the morning, and then not always, but sometimes before I go to sleep at night, depending on the state of where my brain is at the time. But it's my meditation and journaling. And so in the morning, that really is sort of non-negotiable for me. I will sit up. I don't really follow any routine or any specific set of questions. I just wake up. Um, Generally, when I open my eyes, or even before I open my eyes, I will ask myself, what are the three things that I'm grateful for? So that when I get up and put my feet on the floor, we are already starting the day with a sense of gratitude. Um, and then I will get up, get started the day with doing, some simple exercises. I do 25 squats. Um, and that's just for right now. I'm doing 25 squats as I'm trying to get my legs stronger so that I can do more running. But after I do my set of exercises and things like that, X set of exercises, I will generally meditate for 30 minutes. And that's really just sitting in silence. I don't necessarily need guided meditation, although I enjoy guided meditation and recommend it highly for people who feel like they need it. And you don't need to do 30 minutes like I do. Um, 1 to 5 minutes is awesome if that's where you are. I started myself off with doing 1 minute. And what was this? It's 7 years ago now. It, like literally started with 1 minute. And that was so freaking hard. Um, and so that was my meditation practice, was just to sit in silence. And then I sit down and I write. Sometimes I write a little bit, sometimes I write a lot. It all really depends on whatever it is that I have in my head. And what that really does for me is it helps me to be able to check in with myself before the day gets started. Um, yeah, I get to check in with myself before the day gets started, before you check your phone, before you go on YouTube, before you tend to other people, um, before you start worrying about what time it is and where you need to be. Check in with yourself first. That's a ritual that um, that at least for me is irreplaceable. Put yourself first. You know, people always say that that you need to learn self-care, and you think that that means that it has to cost you something. Meditation and journaling literally costs you nothing. Literally costs you nothing. Now you can add stuff to it. Like I might put something like my woody or the patchouli, um, what is that? Essential oil in my diffuser, or I have, I don't have a lot of these. I don't have a lot of incense stick, but this is one. I don't know if you can be able to see it. It's called Nag Forest. The scent of this, and at least on the box, it says it uses clean ingredients. Doesn't list the ingredients or doesn't. It says uh, the finest spices, herbs, floral extracts, exotic oils, and other natural ingredients are carefully selected and skillfully blended for their positive influence. Somewhere else on here, I was looking for it, and it just said everything was made with natural ingredients. And that's important to me. And I can usually tell because it will, like, I'll have an allergic reaction when things to not essential oils, but incense that includes things like perfumes that are not natural. Uh, so that's important to me. You can buy little things like that to be able to add to accent your meditation and journaling experience. But really, you just need yourself. Sit yourself in a corner on your bed, the edge of a chair. Sit for a couple minutes. 1 to 2 minutes is great. 5 minutes, I do 30 minutes. And sometimes I'll do an hour if I feel like I need it. The journaling part is really just me, writing whatever I feel like needs to be expressed in that morning. So sometimes I'll write a list of things that I'm grateful for, whatever it is that I'm looking forward to that day. But usually my first journaling has a tendency to be more positive than negative. It's something that I'm excited about, looking forward to that day. Conversations that I'm excited about having. Um, an opportunity that I'm excited about in my business or just in life in general. Or, if there's an idea of something that I have that was sort of brewing in my brain overnight, I'll make sure that I put it down there. So just something positive, something to be able to look forward to. Um, yeah. So those are my three rituals. My three rituals that keep me grounded. So just to quickly review, um, my first ritual is the essential oils. Gotta have the essential oils. I love to have scents around me, really at all times. I'm always playing in my essential oils, just as a way to be able to keep myself grounded, to help to clear my head. Um, yeah, and then the second one is cooking for health and food is medicine. Start with what you love. Start with your own culture. Start with where you came from. Start with what your parents or your grandparents used to cook for you, and start to find healthy ways to be able to make some of the meals that you love. And then finally, of course, is the daily meditation and journaling that I do first thing in the morning and sometimes at night when I feel like I want to do that as well. All right. So if this is interesting to you and you want more of this, I do have a Substack. It's called Wealthy, Wise, and Whole. You can find it at halana.substack.com. If you go to the description box or even in the comment section, I have a link. Excuse me, I have a link there that you can click on and you can see what I have going on there. I keep a lot of my essays of what I have going on in my life, what I'm thinking about, and then I turn those essays into a journal prompt for you to be able to think about, um, whatever the theme happens to be for that week. Um, what else did I want to say? The essays and the journaling prompts are part of my discovering yourself in midlife uh, theme for this year. Um, this is I'm 40. I turned 49 years old this year, which is a special year for me because I lost my mom when she was 49. And so I'm sort of in a space where I am rethinking what it is that I have, not rethinking, but thinking about what it is that I have learned, particularly in my 40s. Just because this has just been a really significant decade for me. My life has changed in leaps and bounds, and I'm really excited about it. And I want to be able to collect all this wisdom and to really reflect on what it is that I have learned in my 40s so that I can walk into my 40s, and walk into my 50s with eyes wide open and ready for what's to come. And so I said I had lost my mom when she was 49, and I'm just grateful for the opportunity because I realized that when she was 49, she was preparing for her end. And here I am. I get the opportunity to plan for a life of my own choosing, which is special. That's so special. And for so many years I had sort of um like 49 felt like an end for me for many years, but over the last let's see, over the last 8 years that I have been traveling, I've learned how to be able to lift the pressure off of that thought and to be able to get in a much more positive space. So if that sounds like something that is enjoyable to you, I would invite you to join my Substack at halana.substack.com. It's called Wealthy, Wise, and Whole. I love that title. I love that title for a reason. Perhaps in another video, I'll be able to explain the significance of what wealthy, wise, and whole is. But that's all I have for today. I will see you tomorrow. Peace.